social justice, 1, 2, 3. Woo, woo. I wanna be PC. Woo, woo. It's just the way to be for me and you. Woo, woo. Your hateful slurs are through. Woo, woo.
I call woo woo on you.
Woo, woo. We'll fight until you're PC black and blue.
Woo woo.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and I don't know, a couple of days ago, Perch and I had a conversation kind of talking about, what changed in the industry with the way that they're promoting and releasing books. Is it the customers that changed? Is it the publishers? Both? Is it the retailers? What exactly changed? So I wanted to talk to my good friend Eric Breen, the voice of the voiceless. You are a man of the people. You've been a comic book reader for, 45 years? A comic aficionado for 45 years. And it feels like you've been through all the ups, all the downs, and you have a good perspective on this. And I appreciate that you don't lose your mind too often, and I don't have to do too many edits like on a doc video. How you doing, Breen?
I'm doing all right.
So we are in a place where you no longer buy Marvel comics. You don't buy DC comics. You're an older gentleman. Some people might say, well, maybe Eric Breen aged out of the hobby just as far as the big two. But I noticed a friend of ours, Jimmy, who's in his 20s, early 20s, he's also given up Marvel and DC. And I see this kind of, people walk away for whatever reasons. How did we get here? How did we get to the point where even the audience that they're trying to court have just decided it's not worth it?
Well, for a while I thought it had to do with that it was more of an age thing. That you get as you get older, things that you enjoyed, you find you don't enjoy as much anymore. You realize that the TV shows that you watched aren't necessarily aimed at you anymore. And at some point, whether you want to or not, you do age out of certain things. But with comics, I think it's more to do with ideology. And the best way I can sum it up in one sentence was, at some point, the industry became more focused on the agenda rather than the adventure. Now, how we got there took a long time, and that's a discussion in itself. And I'm not sure exactly. I think it might have started about 20 years ago, and then in drips and drabs. But it's really picked up steam in the last decade. I think the industry decided they did want a different audience. And the way to go about that was to change the way they presented the comics. And I'm sure initially it was, well, this is going to bring in all the readers we were never able to get before. And if we can add those to the roles, so to speak, we'll have the best of both worlds, because you're competing with so much more now. If you're going to try to get in that kid's wallet, you've got to get him to, not spend some of that video game money on comics. So the way they did it, whether it was to make the comics more like the video games, or make the comics more like the live action properties, or in other cases, make the characters in the comics more relatable to the new readers they were hoping to get.
But have they really been successful? I don't think a lot of people are relating to the characters. I think most people, when they come into, we'll talk about the superhero genre because it's mostly what we cover here. Obviously, comic books do cover the gambit. When we talk about superheroes, it goes beyond ideology. People want to see heroic figures rise up. People that you maybe not relate to, that you can admire and want to aspire to be. In a lot of cases, especially in a Superman, Captain America. Certainly not in a Punisher. That's not really who you want to aspire to be. So I think that they're watering down the foundation of the characters has really turned a lot of readers off, whether they be older readers like yourself or me, or younger readers like Jimmy. The idea that you're going to age out of the hobby, Eric, I think is preposterous, because I know that with what you've been doing with your local comic shop that you're doing some work for, when we talk, you're very excited about that. When we do our comic book retrospectives, it's probably the funnest segment that I'm doing on the channel right now. And part of that is because you love talking about this stuff so much. You like going back there and reading good comic books. I don't think you've aged out a day. I think, if anything, your passion for comics is just as strong as it's ever been, if not stronger.
Oh, definitely stronger. Now, getting back to what you said before, we were talking about you mentioned Superman, Captain America, and the Punisher. No one should aspire to be the Punisher. But what the Punisher should do is entertain. That was what the comic book was supposed to be, is entertainment, escapism. Same with Superman. You're not going to be able to fly to other galaxies. You're not going to be able to punch planets, or depending on how powerful Superman is, with each iteration. Captain America is the ultimate aspirational hero. Somewhere along the line, the industry decided that you shouldn't aspire to be them, but that they should come down more to your level so you can relate to them, because you're supposed to be able to see yourself in your entertainment. And I've never understood that, because if all entertainment is to make you see yourself, then all the entertainment you would ever need is your mirror. So
Yeah, or your own daily life. Like,
yeah,
let's get that's why you come into these stories. That's why you're entertained. You don't get a little respite from all the stuff that's going out there. And especially right now, I think that's probably a big problem with people, kind of not happy with the current situation, is because everything outside their window sucks so bad right now. And then when you get to your 24 pages of escapism, and you're not escaping anything.
No, the comic book was supposed to be, as you said, a form of escapism, and it was supposed to entertain. Comic books today seem more interested in informing you or lecturing, even.
Or informing your opinion, your worldviews, trying to inform you and like shape your morality to the will of the writer.
Yeah, it's when a lot of writers turn their characters into self-inserts, or they use them as basically a mouthpiece for their own personal worldviews, you're not getting escapism. Again, you're getting someone else's views, not someone else's ideas about what a hero should be. Well, actually you are, but you're getting the wrong ideas in a lot of places, because if you're reading Superman, ultimately you want to see Superman triumph. You don't want to read 12 issues only to have someone have to come in and save him in his own title, or everybody being more capable than him, because for years he was the gold standard of superheroes, but he doesn't look like the kind of character that we want to promote necessarily, so we have to make everybody else just a little better.
It's crazy. I think it goes deeper than this. I do think what you're saying has a part to do with it. It's like you got all this stuff, you get in this creep factor when it's coming into your comic book. You're like, okay, this is no longer entertaining. But I also think the story craft is really diminished. Like right now, we're going through all these back issues and these retrospectives, and just the craft is better. What they could fit into 24 pages, like when your comic book was over, even if the story was going to keep going, that part of the story was over. You had a complete breaking point. Now, when's the last time Brian Michael Bendis ended a story? I read Shadow Man #1. I was amazed when I got over. I was like, I read it a complete story. There was a beginning, middle, and end. The story is going to continue, but this comic book can be read as a single issue. And I was amazed. I haven't seen this in a while. That stuff might work for like binge or in a graphic novel, but in periodic episodic formats, it doesn't really work the same. Like you need to have better story craft, executing the stories better. I think it's degraded so badly that even I think if the writing quality was better, you'd be able to ignore some of the flaws you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, there's a line in the old Superman TV series, "Fights a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way." Bendis might have taken that a little bit too close to heart, as does too many writers, because I said the stories they never end, and in some ways they're not supposed to, but you have to at least have spots where you can where one thing ends and the next thing begins, and that used to be done masterfully by people like Chris Claremont, because he always had 3 or 4 subplots going, even if you only remembered 2 or 3 of them, but that's another thing. But now it's, you have these stories and they don't seem to have anything else going on but they don't ever seem to have a satisfying ending, or if it does, it's not what you wanted. And when I was getting back to before, when I was talking about Superman having to be saved by everybody else, I guarantee somebody's going to comment says, "We get it, you don't like women and black people," and that's the farthest from what I was talking about. I mentioned Supergirl having to save Superman. If she's in her own book, I would be a little annoyed if Superman had to save the day in that. That's kind of what another thing of comics is. If the title says Spider-Man, ultimately you want Spider-Man to be the hero of that story. Or if it's a team book, everybody gets their time to shine. But it just doesn't seem to work that way in the industry anymore.
Like I said, you've been through bubbles bursting. I think there was a big storm back in the day that threw off DC Comics. So you've seen a lot of the rise and fall of some of these eras that seem tumultuous. What does it feel like right now? Is this the worst you've ever seen it? Is it not as bad as maybe some people are anticipating it could get, or is it like nothing you've seen before?
I would say this is the worst I've seen. I just when you think it can't get worse, it does. Now, that's not to say that there aren't some things going on in at the big two. So I said, Daredevil's still going well, from what I understand. Yeah, I said I was reading Spider-Man for a while and kind of enjoying what I was reading there. But when you see something like this X-Men Hellfire Gala, and we've talked about it to death all over the place, and I agree with Doc. I think this does seem intentional. That it's almost like, we've been trying to get rid of you wrong think readers for years, and you're just not listening. So take this. And also, I said again, when you're creating stories not for your readers, but for an article in Entertainment Weekly, which they got, maybe a piece in Salon or Slate, and all the places that are just going to rubber stamp this and say it's the best thing ever. And like I said, Twitter's going to love it. Retailers are going to hate it. And at the end of the day, which group of people should come first? I would say the retailers and the readers, because they're the ones that have to keep the industry going. But we seem to get more things that are being designed and put out there for everybody but.
Yeah, it's crazy. You used to have two pretty distinct, different universes. DC was very different than Marvel. I don't know. It feels like DC wants to be Marvel. Marvel wants to be DC. We got the DC heroes invading Marvel for Heroes Reborn. The new age of heroes at DC Comics is essentially a bunch of Marvel knockoffs in DC Comics. I can't even recognize the DC universe right now. It's so bleak and hopeless. And we know where it's all going to go down. It's only going to get worse and worse because we saw the end state of a lot of this stuff in Future State, where they're heading.
You mentioned the new age of heroes. That was DC when they were doing just about everything right, realizing that Marvel they figured if Marvel's not using their characters, we'll show you how it used to be. And a lot of these books were, very comparable to the old Marvel characters, how they used to be
Damage
done.
was the best Hulk book that you could read. The Terrifics was the best Fantastic Four book you could read. They had some really good stuff going on in there.
Yeah. And then we all know what caused that to blow up. They hired Bendis.
Well, I don't think it was Bendis. I think they launched too many titles all at once. And then they didn't stick to the promotion. The promotion was supposed to be, the master class of artists, and they were top billed. Jim Lee lasted half an issue. I think Tony Daniel lasted 2 issues, and John Romita Jr. I think lasted 2 or 3 issues on Silencer. And so,
No. Right, but my point was, in those in-house ads where one month it was one for Terrifics and one for Immortal Men, instead it turned into Bendis is coming. He sucked up the entire promotional budget of the company, and they just basically, and to your point, the not being able to keep the creators that were promised on for any length of time. So that had its own set of problems, and it was probably doomed to failure. But losing any promotional budget. Then also that a lot of other books not attached to New Age Heroes, like Hawkman, was getting a lot of promotion. It just disappeared overnight. But that's a small problem that the industry has always had at promoting anything that isn't tethered to the Justice League at DC or Spider-Man, and the X-Men at Marvel.
I don't understand how we got here, Eric, but it does feel like a bad place, and it does feel like it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I do think it's going to get better. Do you have hope?
I don't know. When the people in charge of the people making the books have a different view of what comics are supposed to be, and those people are, as long as they're in charge, I don't see it getting a whole lot better. DC has just allowed most of its top people to walk because they're taking the Marvel tact that they're just IPs. It doesn't matter who's producing them as long as the characters are there. That's a mistake that the industry continues to make. And you can say, well, Marvel's still selling blah blah blah, but compared to what they were X amount of years ago before that, I'm not talking about the speculator bubble when everything was inflated, but now it's if 40,000 copies is considered a success. And that's not 40,000 getting into readers' hands. That's 40,000 copies getting onto shelves. So whatever they're doing isn't working, but they continue to keep doing the same thing, doubling down, DC raising their prices. I'm waiting for the holding the line at $5.99 promos. It's just at some point, readers just say, let me up. I've had enough.
Like I mentioned earlier, it's not the old guard either, or at least it's not just them. It's we're seeing a lot of younger readers walking away too. But it is the highest form of insanity. They just keep doing the same stuff and same stuff. They're like, well, you guys just don't get it, or this isn't for you. Well, then, if it's not for me, with a YouTube channel that talks about comic books every single day with multiple videos, or if it's not for Eric Breen, who's been reading comic books for 45 years and collects them, has an enormous collection. I've seen Doc's, man cave. I don't know how many comic books he's got in there, but he's afraid his floor's going to collapse in. That's how many comic books. If you're not making comic books for that guy, then why the hell are you making comic books to begin with?
Well, I've been saying this for years, that you look at entertainment, whether it's Ghostbusters, Ocean's 8, Terminator, etc., and they keep Charlie's Angels. They keep making movies, and then telling us it's not for you, and then complaining when we don't watch it. But then then okay, they know this isn't going to work. Why do they keep doing it? And finally, it dawned on me. I said, the reason why they're doing that is because they're going to keep doing that until there are no alternatives. And then you're either going to have to take it or you get nothing. And I've yet to have somebody give me a convincing argument that I'm not right about that, because it keeps happening over and over and over again, whether it's TV, movies, comics, just about video games, anything. It just seems to be the direction in which we're going.
But people eventually, once they lose faith in the establishment, whether it be the media, comic books, entertainment, they're going to go find alternatives. So some people, when they go for news, they don't go to CNN, they don't go to Fox News, they don't go to ABC News or any of that stuff. They just go to YouTube. People looking for comic book entertainment, some of them have given up the big two. They'll just go to Kickstarter or Indiegogo. They're looking for alternatives. And, I do think in the case of comic books, the big two are absolutely fueling the fire under these comic book campaigns that are happening. We see a lot of them making a ton of money. They're only getting bigger. They're doing a good product. They've got people excited. They're going out there and talking to their customers. But I also think the big two driving people away has a lot to do with it, because people are going to find their alternatives. They're going to read comic books with or without you.
And that's kind of the mistake that they're making in all of this. If you're not going to support what they're doing now, there's a good chance, especially if you're an older reader, you're supporting the stuff that came before you. So, like I said, the back issue market is thriving.
Yeah,
But
Pele's talking about he is in full acquisition mode. He has been for I think 24 months. If there's a comic book shop that closes down, or if there's a big collection that goes on the market, he gets wind of it. He does everything he can to get in there and get the entire collection, no matter what, because he knows he's seen the interest, and people are just churning and burning through back issues right now. I know you're working at your LCS. You're doing a lot of sorting. You have a lot of collections that are coming in, being purchased, and you're kind of sorting them out for the owner. He's in full acquisition mode too, right?
And they are going out the door as fast as I can put them out. But the people in charge at the big two, they know this. They might appear to have their heads buried in the sand.
And Dan Didio were complaining that there were reprints of classic issues were outselling the current new material of the same character.
Now, if they had any,
that's not the red flag to tell you that what you're creating now sucks in comparison to what you're offering as a reprint of old material that people probably already have. I don't know what to tell you.
Well,
it's slapping you in the face.
They know that. They know that what they're producing doesn't have the appeal of the older stuff. But here's the thing. That audience that they're going to get come hell or high water doesn't those people don't want that stuff that's flying out the door at every LCS. And instead of going, wow, maybe we should do stuff for them and get our new books back up to speed, they're going to double down. They're going to get angry at the people that are buying the back issues and move the new stuff farther away from anything that those people would be interested in, because they're going to get this new audience no matter what it takes.
I hate to break it to them, and I hate to break it to you, Eric. That new audience, they think that Batman and Superman and Captain America and Iron Man are problematic. And those are your main selling characters. Those are your big A-listers, right? That are supposed to bring people in. They don't want that. They don't want what you have to offer them.
That's why the versions of those characters you're getting are more flawed than ever, less capable than ever, and basically become almost like the butt of the joke in their own books, because we've got to tear them down so that we can give you the characters that we want you to have.